I'm gonna sit, if you'll do the 2-minute thing.
Yes.
I'll do the hour 15 thing. And that way somebody's keeping track of it.
How are you?
I'm good. Good morning. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good. Blaine will be co-presenting with me.
Okay.
And then, okay. So you don't need anything else for that. You're good.
No, I'm gonna put it right down there, and you just need to tell me when you're ready to hand off, and then
will.
we'll be ready. Welcome to House Ed. It's 8 o'clock, and we are in session. We're going to do a silent roll, but I can see already that we do have a quorum, so we're ready for business. We do have minutes from our committee. Representative Souter.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from February 14th.
It's been moved that we approve the minutes from February 14th, 2023. Are there any additions, corrections, or comments to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Approve same, and the motion carries. Then we have subcommittee minutes. Who's going to do that?
And it's only the subcommittee can vote.
Only the subcommittee can vote. All right, so if you're on the subcommittee, Representative Galaviz.
Motion to approve subcommittee minutes from the 14th and the 21st.
So this will be only those that are on the subcommittee. All those in, are there any, well, there aren't really minutes. It just shows that it was open and anybody could be there, and we did have guests. So all those in favor who are on the subcommittee of approving the minutes from February 14th and 2023, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And those carry as well. Thank you. So welcome everyone to House Ed. This is how we're going to do this. We're going to give an hour and 15 minutes for each of these bills. And so from when the presenter begins, that starts the clock on the hour and 15. And then we have testifiers, some in person, some virtual. And we did, as I was reminded by my good friend, Representative Wisniewski, we had decided at the beginning that if someone has traveled from a far distance, that we would start with their testimony, in-person testimony first. And so that's how we're going to do that. And if I miss someone, so when we're done with that hour and 15, then we'll be done. So the one thing I would like to remind you is that this is really challenging, but you need to listen to what somebody has testified before you. And if it's the same as what you're going to say, you can get up and say that, you agree with the previous person that was for, but we want to give as many people in this room a chance to testify. So we're going to ask you to not repeat what somebody else has said so that we get as many of the ideas out there for and against as that we can, and that we listen to as many of you as we possibly can. So with that in mind, I would also just remind us all that we are going to honor each other in how we treat each other. I would remind the audience that it's one of those things where we don't clap, we don't call out, we just listen. And if you have to sit on your hands, sometimes that's me. Or so I understand that it's has much emotion tied to it. So we're just going to ask you to, that we're all going to try to be our very best selves. All right, having said that, the first item on our agenda is H-139. Representative Crane, you're for the record information, and you are on.
All right. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Representative Jaron Crane, District 12 in Nampa. First, want to start by talking about our Idaho Constitution. I went and looked this up last night, and in our Idaho Constitution, Article 3, Section 24, it says promotion of temperance and morality. The first concern of all good government is the virtue and sobriety of the people and the purity of the home. The legislature should further all wise and well-directed efforts in the promotion of temperance and morality. That's from our Idaho Constitution. In a 2003 landmark case of the United States versus the American Library Association, all members of the U.S. Supreme Court agreed that libraries have a legitimate and a compelling interest and protecting young library users from material inappropriate to minors. According to an IFPC poll conducted in December of 2022, 74% of Idaho voters believe that it is important that libraries keep obscene and harmful materials away from minor children. So what's the purpose of this bill? This bill requires that public school and community libraries take responsible and reasonable steps to restrict children's access to material that is obscene or harmful to minors. I'd like to start out by walking through this bill with you. There's been several narratives, if you've looked at your email, that have been framed about this bill, and many of you haven't even read this bill. I'm not offended by that. Most of the people who sent out those emails have never read this bill either. So I want to talk a little bit about that. First and foremost, this is not a book ban bill. We are simply asking libraries to take a reasonable step to restrict this material from minors. If an adult chooses to access this material, that's up to the library. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about children. It's fair for tax-paying parents to know that if they send their kids to a public library, community library, and there's harmful material in there, that they shouldn't have to worry that those kids just easily access that material. A point of clarification for us here: if you distribute this material to a child outside of the library, whether it's the library steps, a 7-Eleven gas station, a bookstore, you're getting prosecuted criminally. But if you walk backwards 12 steps into the library, all of a sudden it's okay. That's what we're talking about here today. So, false narrative number one. You are trying to punish librarians, these poor librarians. No. We greatly appreciate our librarians and their service to the community by what they do. This bill uses common law doctrine, and I'm going to give you an example of what that is. Last week, one of our employees at our company broke a window at someone's home. We met with our general manager on Monday for lunch, like we always do. And he said, "What do we do?" He's a new general manager to us, and we said, "We pay for the window." That's exactly what is in law right now, and that's exactly what this bill does. It protects the librarian by saying the Board of Trustees is responsible, not the librarian. So I want to get in front of that narrative. This isn't about the librarian. And that common law doctrine is known as respondeat superior. So, library boards. I went last night and I looked up, and you can look this up as well right now if you have your laptop, boisepubliclibrary.org. Right there on their website, they help us out quite a bit with this. You go right down to the homepage under the board structure and responsibilities, and this is exactly what it reads on their website. The library board sets policy for the operation of the public library. By law, library boards in Idaho are responsible rather than advisory boards. So, we're not trying to punish librarians. False narrative number two. Kids have access to this material on their phones. This bill is about libraries. This is not about cell phones. It's not about your personal devices. It's about libraries. These are public, tax-funded facilities, and that's what we're talking about. False narrative number three. The civil penalty is too high. To all the members on this committee, your chairman and other members of the majority caucus voted to pass House Bill 666 last session. That had criminal penalties in it. This has been scaled down to civil penalties. Okay? So, even then, each of you on this committee, I say and I say again, I would make an effort. I'm a business guy. If we need to talk about the civil penalties, we can talk about that. That's fine. I'm open to that. So, I'm going to yield my time now to Blaine Gonzatti. He's going to come up and share some things.
Your for the record information, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Blaine Gonzatti. I serve as president of Idaho Family Policy Center. And as the other bill sponsor just explained, the Children's School and Library Protection Act creates a duty of care for schools and libraries by ensuring that they take reasonable steps to restrict children's access to obscene materials. Let me assure you guys, this legislation is defensible. There is no First Amendment right to disseminate obscenity to children, period. This legislation uses a modified version of the Miller test. And the Miller test, as you all know, was promulgated by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1973 to define which materials qualify as obscene. Subsequent decisions modified this test, applying it to minors. Prohibiting libraries and schools from distributing books or other material that fall under this definition of obscenity complies with the necessary federal court decisions, helping to ensure the defensibility of House Bill 139. In fact, the U.S. Supreme Court, as Representative Crane said earlier, has ruled that state governments and libraries both have a compelling interest in protecting minors from obscene material. This makes sense when you consider the state's responsibility in protecting the public health, safety, and morals, especially of minor children. That's why the state of Idaho has long declared its policy in 18-1513 Idaho Code of restraining the distribution of material harmful to minors because, quote, such materials are a contributing factor to crime, to juvenile crime, and also a basic factor in impairing the ethical and moral development of our youth. Additionally, the state of Idaho has a compelling interest in protecting the fundamental right of parents to nurture and direct their children's upbringing, education, and destiny, which undoubtedly includes protecting the right of parents to shield their children from pornographic materials. We can talk about the legal ins and outs of this legislation until we're blue in the face, and I'm happy to do that, but let me be real honest with you guys right now about the problem that this legislation aims to correct. Idaho Family Policy Center recently released a report detailing that this is a widespread statewide problem. Now, of course, not every school and not every library distributes smut to kids. But according to our investigation, public schools or public libraries in nearly 30 cities throughout the state of Idaho currently make obscenity available to children. Let me repeat that, because that was startling to us when we found that out. Public schools or community libraries in nearly 30 Idaho cities give children access to obscenity. That's disturbing. It explains why nearly 74% of likely Idaho voters support legislation that requires public schools and community libraries to keep pornographic materials away from children. Do right by these kids and do right by these parents. Please approve the Children's School and Library Protection Act, House Bill 139, and I'm happy to stand for any questions you might have.
Representative Clow, I am going to say that if we can limit our questions so that we give the public as much opportunity to speak, I would really appreciate that, but you will have opportunity to ask questions. But go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, Representative Clow.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully this is a quick question. Your last comment about 30 libraries that may make available, just for clarity, you think they're making it available like it's really obviously available, or it's available in such a way that a kid could get to it when it's actually more in the adult section? I'd just like to clarify that.
Mr. Kanzati.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Clow. A significant portion of these books are located in the young adults or children's section, in the graphic novels section, which is obviously a section that is utilized heavily by minor children. Some of them, in some of the libraries, are located in adult sections, but the libraries of the schools have not taken reasonable steps to restrict children's access in those cases.
Thank you. All right, so Representative Hill.
Quick one, Madam Chair. I was going to ask if this legislation, would this be burdensome if they wanted to segregate this? Is this going to be a burden to the libraries? I was kind of wondering how big of an impact this would be over these libraries.
Mr. Kanzati.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Hill. That's a really good question. This legislation establishes a duty of care for schools and libraries to take reasonable steps to restrict children's access, as we said earlier. So we're relying upon what's called the reasonableness standard, or the reasonable person standard. And essentially what that requires is that an actor, so in our case, a school or a library, owes a duty of care the same duty of care that any reasonable person under the same circumstances would owe. So if a civil action were brought against a school or brought against a library, the jury ultimately would be asked to determine whether or not the school or library acted reasonably to restrict the child's access to that harmful material, and the judge would instruct the jury accordingly. Now, it's important to know that this test is not subjective. In fact, the courts consider this test an objective test. It's the most objective test, really, that exists in these types of civil actions. And the courts have been clear that reasonable does not mean burdensome. So the reasonable standard does not require schools or libraries to take burdensome steps to fulfill their duty of care. So if it's a reasonable step, it would not be a burdensome step that would be that the jury would expect the library or the school to follow.
Thank you. Does your Senate sponsor wish to speak? Yes. Senator Carlson.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I
Representative
just-
Ehart.
Yes, I'm so sorry. So sorry. I don't know what, it's hard to see. Madam Chair, Mr. Kazadi, and as to what extent you can address, but I think it's a question many of us have. To what extent would you address, to what extent would this legislation open things up, open the door to frivolous lawsuits against schools or libraries?
Mr. Kanzadi.
Madam Chair and Representative Ehart, that's a good question. So I think first we need to remember that the plaintiff, the minor or the parent that's bringing the civil action against the library or the school, bears the burden of proving that the school or library did not take reasonable steps to restrict the access to children. But beyond that, Idaho state law and Idaho judicial procedure gives a court the discretion to award attorney's fees and court costs if the action was commenced or conducted in a frivolous manner. So if a parent were to file a frivolous lawsuit to try to harass a school or harass a library, the school or the library could recover reasonable costs and attorney's fees if the court chooses to award those.
Senator, thank you. Senator Carlson.
Thank you, committee. I'm Senator Cindy Carlson from District 7. I'm not going to, I'm just going to kind of hit some high points. I am really familiar with this bill, so at any point you become confused about anything that it says, I've gone through this bill backwards and forwards. This bill is not to create animosity or frustration in the state. This legislation is to help protect the kids of our state. So I ran on this issue, and that is how I got elected. This is a huge, important issue to me. Literary works are not included as harmful materials in this bill, and you can see it on page 1, line 32 through 28. Sorry, I have that backwards. It looks like 28 through 32. And that's in section 33-6602. Things that possess serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors are not prohibited.
Senator, I'm just going to, what we're looking at in yours, the lines aren't the same, so I'm just going to tell everybody, you've probably found it, but if you start on 33 and then go down to 38, that's where it is in ours. So
Okay,
just,
sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you're good. I just wanted them not looking for it. Continue, please.
The bill requires schools and libraries to take reasonable steps to restrict children's access to harmful and pornographic material. That would require them to basically come up with a policy. So we're not telling them how to come up with a policy, it's up to them. So we're leaving the local control with them. This does not hurt librarians, but holds the institution responsible. That should be on page 2. I want to cover the impacts, the psychological impacts on children. And pornography harms a child's precious brain. It actually changes neural pathways. Pornography harms a child's view of sex. It is on the screen. How it is on the screen is not how it is in real life or in the book. Pornography harms a child's view of people. Pixels lead to objectification. Porn diminishes our ability to see a real, unrepeatable person. Pornography harms a child's quality of life. Pornography causes children to harm other children. To save time for testimony, because I believe that is really, really important, I would be happy to answer questions afterwards, but we do have some material to hand out, and it's extremely graphic. So if you don't want it after the committee meeting, I would be happy to take it and get rid of it for you. But please do not share it with any minors.
So we'll send the page. He won't be rifling through it. He'll just go pick it up and hand it out to the committee, please. Thank you. And while he's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and let us get going with public testimony. So thank you very much, presenters. You'll have time at the end. Did you want to say something about that?
One more thing.
Yes,
I have samples of these books that are in public schools and in the libraries, and we have lists of them all across the state. So if you have a question, we might be able to figure out what school or what public library they are in. This one is in the Boise Public Libraries.
Thank you. So this is how we're going to do this. I'm going to start with the in-persons from the farthest away, and then we're going to go for and against. And so that we'll just try to stick with that. So we're going to start with Ron Nate, Rexburg. For the record, yes, you know.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ron Nate. I'm from District 34, and I'm here representing the Idaho Freedom Foundation to speak in favor of House Bill 139, the Children's School and Library Protection Act. This bill is about schools and libraries, not just libraries. Let's be clear, under 139, no librarian or school employee will ever be sued, and there are no criminal penalties. Only the library or the school can be sued. House Bill 139 creates a civil cause of action against an institution, so there are no lawsuits or criminal penalties against individuals or librarians. The $10,000 cause of action, I've heard that there's a little bit of discomfort with that amount. And the reason why it is $10,000 is for two reasons. Number one, the harm to children from these obscene materials is real and it is serious. And number two, it's $10,000 against the institution. For an individual, yeah, that's huge. But against an institution, $10,000 is significant enough to incentivize them to protect kids by restricting these harmful materials from them. House Bill 139 and 227 are not the same. House Bill 139 is the one that should pass. House Bill 139 specifies that kids deserve protection, and it creates consequences and accountability for the libraries and schools. That's a word we've heard a lot of last couple of weeks, accountability. A bill that just says libraries should do something and then there's no consequence if they fail to do it lacks accountability. House Bill 139 has the accountability. It only makes sense to vote for 139 and against 227. Symbolic legislation does not protect kids. 227 protects institutions, but it does not protect kids. Let's be clear, the only bill to truly protect kids that is before you today is House Bill 139. You're encouraged to vote for it, and I am happy to stand for questions.
Thank you. I see no questions, so we are going to thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next testifier, that's Sherry Sheline, and I'm probably saying it wrong, and she is in person. There she comes. She can correct me. You can say it right for the record, please. Thank you. She's in person. Oh, you can't find it.
My name is Sherry Shaline. And my name is Sherry Shaline, and I'm the proud daughter of a fourth-generation Idahoan. I'm also the proud daughter of a Pentecostal minister, and he is affectionately known as Papa Library. I am also a proud librarian. The narrative and pointing out the Boise Library and discussing their board, my library is a district. The presenter previously pointed out the Boise Library. My library is a district, not a city library. Our Board of Trustees follows different regulations from a city library. That ideology alone should make you carefully reconsider this legislation. My library is one of the newest libraries in Idaho. We are nestled in the West Central Mountains just south of McCall. My library is just over 1,000 square feet. We are located in the heart of Donley, the home of the ancestral ground of the resting ground of the Nimipu tribe. We are located on our own little piece of heaven. My local operating budget is just under $70,000. Just for some comparison, Boise is $12,964,607, and McCall, just up the road, is $596,349 in 2021. I mention all those numbers because the author of this bill thought that numbers were important, 10,000 to be exact. Let me give you a few more numbers. 23, that is how many students attend our after-school program on average, 5 days a week. 96% are receiving free and reduced school lunches. Two of my families come from a nuclear home. 5 are homeless. 3 are English language learners. 8 are below grade level in their reading due to COVID learning loss. 16 is our occupancy, so 100% of our programs are held outside. Negative 26 is the lowest temperature that we've had this year with our kids outside. No question in my mind that librarians cannot afford this legal fee. We can say that it's for the institution. I am my institution. Senator Carlson said that this does not hold the librarian, but rather the institution. I am my institution, and so are my librarians. My trustees sacrifice their time and energy and volunteer for their community. My staff and myself are busy accommodating telehealth, accommodating health and welfare visits, dealing with food insecurities, helping link patrons to mental health resources, housing resources, and more. We then work to promote literacy. The last thing I or myself are doing is promoting pornography.
So wrap up your comments. Yep. Find the most impertinent thing and
I can stop.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Sorry. And if you can put your written testimony, and that goes for everybody, your written testimony can come in and be on record. Thank you so much. Okay.
Madam Chair, no questions?
Oh. Yes. Representative Mendive.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. Do you have any of these objectionable materials in your library?
Ms. Shaline.
Well, in my thing today, I was going to read an excerpt from a book in my library today. My excerpt was from Solomon chapter 1. It's a sensual scene of oral sex. The book is called the Bible.
Okay, and that would be the only one that you have. Is that correct, Madam Chair?
I mean, would you consider that objectionable is the question. So that would be something that if a patron brought that to me and considered that objectionable, then obviously we would have to get an attorney under this legislation to go to court and have a jury decide that.
Okay. So,
Representative Mendive.
Madam Chair, so do you have any of these other books that we're talking about? We're all familiar with the Bible. It's the most distributed book in the world.
Many of the books that were listed, my library does not have. But again, my budget is $70,000, and I also only have 1,000 square feet. So my total, I only have 14,000 books.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One quick follow-up, real quick. Thank you, Madam Chair. So if you don't have any of these books, then this bill would not really even apply to your library, would it?
Mrs. Shaline.
Well, I mean, those are books listed. I mean, if we're going to go ahead and give if we give a list of books, a particular list of books out, then we are in fact banning books. So then this bill does become about banning books. Because if we're going to send out a list of books that your library can't have, then we are banning books. So then we're into a whole different bill.
We'll stop it there, and thank you so much. You answered the question. Thank you. So our next, it's a 4 from Rathdrum, is Rochelle Ottoson, and she's in person. there she is. Okay. Yeah. Oh. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'm not Rochelle, but Rochelle and Nina are from our group. They left at 1 o'clock in the morning and they've hit snow. So they're wondering.
So you're
if they
going to be
can go-
the in-person? Yes, you bet.
Well, I'm not doing it for her. I'm just
Oh.
wondering if they can go a little bit later. They're going to be here in probably about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
If that's okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
right, thank you,
All
Madam
right,
Chair.
no, that's good. So our next four is from Buell, and that's Kathy Thompson. It says in person. And I am going to give about 5 more seconds. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the next person that's from Rathdrum, and that's Nina. Oh, wait, Nina's the other one, right? So I'll wait on her too. Got it. And then from Post Falls, Heather Greenman, and it's in person as there. Oh, that's you. All right. We should have just kept you up there. There you go. For the record, and you're on.
Yes, Madam Chair. I actually have a couple more books.
We're there in person. Wait till she. Right, yeah. Let's stop it because she hasn't even said her name yet. Let's start over. Hang on 1 second. We're
Sure.
technical difficulty. Okay, now you're for the record, and don't start it till
Okay,
they
Madam
stop.
Chair, before we start my time, this book is pornographic, so I do want to give a warning before I start.
Well, we're not going to let you read it because we have a page in here. But what you absolutely can do is say, here are how many pages that you feel like that there was something there was inappropriate. So
Madam
let's do
Chairman,
it that way.
I
Yes.
object.
Yes.
Yes.
If we cannot read the material that is in some of the public libraries in the juvenile section here in front of the audience of adults, what are we trying to do?
Well, we
If
have
we
a
can't
page
listen to
here
it,
who is
then
not.
may I make a motion to dismiss the page and any other minors that are in the audience?
The other problem that we have, Representative Wisniewski, is that this is live streamed and going into homes, and I don't know who's. Senator Carlson gave us this for our eyes only, and so what I would ask you to do is that you may very well start it there, and it can move all the way around here, and we can see that lots of pages are marked, and so that will satisfy
Madam
both.
Chairman,
I am not going to allow it, Representative Wisniewski. I am not. So
it shows how serious this problem is to the public if we can't even discuss it in front
Your
of.
point has been made. We're not doing it. So we're going to give you your for the record time, and she won't start the time until after you said your name and who you represent.
Okay. Heather Greenman and Post Falls District 5. Thank you. I am Heather Greenman from District 5. I am in favor of HB 139. I was groomed by porn in an abusive relationship, eventually resulting in me being sexually assaulted. I know the damage that early porn exposure causes. There are 10 copies of the book that is going around. It is called The Court of Silver Flames, and it is in our local libraries. It is labeled adolescent. That is for kids as young as 12. The book has 64 pages of mostly hardcore explicit porn that focuses on pornographic animalism, violence, abuse, masturbation. Its sister books are also available in the library. I have 2 of them as a series. There's also one more I do not have. They are also equally explicit. If you look on the booklooks.org website, they found that legally they needed to give a warning to give out the excerpts that are in this book. It is rated a level 4. So obviously these books should not be available for our children as young as 12. There are hundreds of pornographic books in my own local libraries in the minor section. Most are not images, most are written. For 15 months, we have asked for them to be removed. 0 books have been removed. HB 139 is the only bill that protects our kids from the written filth and gives a mechanism of enforcement. I know the harms that early porn exposure causes, and I appeal to your conscience. Do not allow our kids to be groomed like I was. Our libraries have been bullied by a small group that want our children sexualized. You can help them with a strong bill like HB 139 so they can confidently say no to the bullies. And if that book is not appropriate to be read before this committee, it is not appropriate to be given out to our children. So I ask that you take this seriously and pass HB 139 today.
Thank you. Well done. Next on our list is Bonnie Schuster. Yes, Representative, oh, no, okay.
Sorry.
You
Go
can-
ahead, I
If you
stand for
want to ask her a
questions.
question, you may. Yes,
Yep.
Representative Mathias.
Thank you, ma'am. Just a question about, you mentioned that you, or someone requested that this book or other books be removed. When you or others submitted the library's request for reconsideration of material and it was returned with a decline,
Yes.
what was the library board's rationale for why they were not going to remove it or move it or
Ms.
whatever was
Greenman.
asked?
Sure. Yes, actually, in the library board meeting in January, our interim library director stated that they've removed 0 books, and her response was because they are following Idaho law, they've broken no law, and if you look on their website, it says that they do not have pornography in the minor section of the library. It's actually stated on the CLN website.
Follow up?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll just restate my question. I'm sure that the library's position at a board meeting was, I'm just asking about the process that is in place.
Ms. Greenman.
What was the response when the form was submitted? Please remove this book. They must have responded.
Well, they rejected
officially.
it. They rejected the book request.
And what was their rationale in the document?
Ms. Greenman.
That is the response, that they are following the law. That's what I'm saying. She made a statement at the last meeting to answer the questions that the citizens had about why books were not being removed and about their new, they made a new material selection policy in November that was regarding pornography for minors. But even then, no books have been removed. So that was the statement. She was answering the question to the public. Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Birch. And so, just so you know, Ms. Greenman,
Yeah.
they'll ask the question, but I will then acknowledge you.
Oh, sure. I'm
It's
sorry,
okay.
ma'am.
No, it's okay. It's fine. Representative Birch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For a very quick question.
Yes.
Are the members of your library board elected by the local community?
Ms. Greenman.
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Seeing no further questions, we'll let you have a seat. Thank you so much. So next we have Bonnie Schuster. Your for the record information, and you may begin.
Thank you. My name is Bonnie Schuster. I live in Boise, Idaho. I am representing myself today, and Chairman Yamamoto and the members of the committee, I thank you for this opportunity to testify. I oppose House Bill 139, and I ask you to oppose it as well. I always thought that Idaho was a state that respected and even revered the concept of personal responsibility. But I'm beginning to wonder, as we seem to be sliding towards some sort of, I'm going to call it a nanny state, where the legislature wants to decide what we should see and hear and do and read, and I don't think that's compatible with Idaho values. I understand that this bill is directed at what minors may access in libraries, but that is and should be the province of the parents to monitor. Idaho parents are perfectly capable of monitoring what materials their children are accessing and whether they deem them appropriate. They are even capable of having conversations with their children about why certain materials may be inappropriate based on the child's age, the family's values, and other factors. The bill seems to me to be a solution in search of a problem, and it will do nothing but create problems for our libraries and our schools, even if not the individuals, for those institutions, which are such important resources in our communities, but which lately seem to be under constant and unwarranted attack. People with agendas that have little to do with concern for children, or those who would just like to make a quick buck, will use this law to harass and intimidate our libraries and schools and restrict what my family can access at our public library. Please kill this unnecessary bill. Thank you.
Thank you. So I see that Rochelle Ottoson has arrived. She needs just a minute. She just barely walked in the door. Would you like us to go on to someone else and then come back? Okay, all right. I don't want to be.
They're about 2 minutes behind us. So did you call her yet?
No.
You called her?
Is she for? Oh, I think I did.
They're on about a 2-minute delay.
Oh, on a 2-minute delay. Let me find her. Okay, I'm going to have Kathy Thompson make her way over here, And also Lyle Johnstone, if you're in the other room, we'll let you make your way over here. And then we will go to Joseph Greenman. Actually, that's a 4. I'm sorry. I need to do I'm sorry. No, wait, she wasn't against. You're next. You're up. Sorry. And do your for the information, and then the floor is yours.
Yes, I'm Joseph Greenman from Post Falls, District 5, and I am for H139. So I was a porn addict for 16 years. I've known many men that were porn addicts trying to get clean. One thing that we all had in common is that we were all exposed to porn at a very young age, whether it was an image, video, or literature. Children's and adolescents' brains are developing. The problem-solving, rational prefrontal cortex is not as connected as the emotional, pleasure-seeking limbic system. This is why teenagers seem to make bad decisions and have heightened sensitivity to easy reward behaviors such as drug and alcohol abuse, gaming, and pornography. Pornography takes no work to earn a reward, unlike real relationships, and therefore it can be highly addictive and cause many addicts to choose pornography over actual healthy sexual relationships. This can lead to broken marriages, broken relationships, sexual dysfunction, antisocial tendencies, loneliness, shame, depression, objectification, and dehumanization of people, unrealistic, unhealthy, aggressive, selfish, harmful, and sometimes violent ideas of sexuality, etc., etc. I know for myself it caused a number of these issues. I had a very hard time connecting with people, and the loneliness only drove me deeper into addiction. By God's grace, I have been free for 6 years, but it took a Herculean effort to get free. So many are struggling with porn addiction in our society today. It is more accessible than any generation before us. I think it's absolutely reprehensible that schools and libraries have pornographic and hypersexual books available to minors. We need a law that has a real enforcement mechanism in order to protect our kids and protect kids from written porn as well as graphic porn. Let's move those books to the adult section. Vote yes on HB 139.
Thank you so much. Is Lyle Johnstone? Give us your for the record information, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. My name's Lyle Johnstone. I live in District 26. House Bill 139 seems like a no-brainer. When the second to the last testimony, I think is just clear that this type of material that's accessible by children is unacceptable in the state of Idaho. And it's a soft fix. I'm okay to go with this and get started at it. I think some of the attitudes and the things that we see in our libraries are obviously, I don't know that this has got enough teeth in it, but I suspect we'll find out in the near future whether it does or not. The library boards or the schools should be held responsible. But I also see the short circuit that librarians can be a part of this. So, and I would absolutely support H139, and I would stand for questions if there are any.
Seeing none, I thank you so much for your testimony. So obviously, I think when you signed up that you probably
checked the wrong box.
Yeah, and it's okay. No harm, no foul. But we'll do 2 against now. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming from far away. So we'll do 2 against. The first being Heather Stout, and it will be virtual, so you'll have to find her. And Gregory Taylor, you're going to be on deck, so we'll try to move this along. I think, okay. We can hear you.
All right. right, can you hear me?
And we can see you also, so you're for the record and
good.
you're on. Thank you.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Heather Stout, and I live on a ranch just north of Genesee, Idaho. I am speaking today in opposition of HB 139. As a retired professional librarian with over 30 plus years of experience in academic school and public libraries in Idaho, I feel I can offer a qualified perspective on the consequences of this badly designed bill. Although libraries differ slightly in their mission, all provide access to materials to the populations they serve. And that is one of the profound problems with this bill. Libraries serve all their students, all their patrons, not one specific group or individual. When one group suggests banning materials they do not agree with, it is a direct attack on our democracy. Libraries are the foundations of our democracy, and the individuals we entrust as guardians and keepers of that democracy are our nation's librarians. Yet HB 139 disrespects and ridicules the professionals who are strengthening our democracy every day by protecting we the people's right to know. This current attack on schools and libraries are not only dividing our Idaho communities, but they are seriously harming our youth as well. I have a master's degree in library science. I have served on state and regional boards, evaluated library programs and practices. I have even had the honor to serve on a National Book Award committee. However, the sponsors of HB 139 believe that all my education and training is not enough to do my job. In fact, my training is so inconsequential that I can be sued for $10,000 because someone didn't like something in the library. Instituting criminal penalties against libraries and library personnel will not help our children grow up to be critical thinkers. Research repeatedly shows that student access to a variety of materials is critical to their development and their well-being. And finally, as a parent and a taxpayer, I do not want to help any insurance company become richer on the backs of our children due to the lawsuits that will occur if this bill passes. Vote no on HB 139. Thank you, and I would be delighted to stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Representative Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mrs. Stout. Can you point to the bill section that bans books?
Sir, if this bill becomes law, any individual can challenge any book in the library. Right now, if you do that, there are material selection policies at every library, and you have the right to do that. However, what is the criteria for banning the book? In this particular bill, it says harmful material. I would like to know what that exactly that is what the definition of that is.
Representative,
what is the definition of
sorry, pardon me, Representative Hawkins.
Follow up with one, there was no reference to anything in the bill that says banning books. I would also like to know if Mrs. Stout could show me the reference in the bill where it says criminal penalties.
Ms. Stout.
The $10,000. If it's not criminal, I guess it's, but still it's going against an institution, or it's going, and that will make those librarians not feel comfortable to be able to recommend specific materials to children, young adults, or adults. Our job is to match a book or a material with the person. That's what we do, and we're really very good at it.
Thank you, Ms. Stout. We appreciate your testimony. Gregory Taylor.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You're for the record information.
Thank you, Chairman Yamamoto and committee. My name is Gregory Taylor. I'm from District 16. I'm the teacher librarian and a former English teacher at Hillside Junior High here in Boise, and I'm the Idaho 2022 Idaho School Librarian of the Year. In my job, I help with research, lesson plans, and technology, but far and away, the best part of my job is helping students find books. My students want stories that are relevant to their everyday lives. Each student at my school should be able to find themselves within the books that we have in our library. Each student, regardless of race, socioeconomic status, body size and shape, history, gender identity, religion, or personal taste. When any of us go to the library, we hope to find the kinds of books we want, and others do the same. This is the beauty of libraries. It's how libraries work. We borrow the books we want and ignore the ones we don't. Banning books on behalf of everyone is a slippery slope. Where does it end? Who decides? No one standard could ever match all needs and tastes. Should parents have the right to tell their own children which books to avoid? Of course. Responsible parents know what their children are reading, and they take the time to make those thoughtful decisions about which books their kids read. Let other families make their own choices. When I choose books for our school library, I follow the collection development policies of our district, and I consult reviews from trusted professional journals. And I search for materials that will support the lessons and curricula of our teachers. But I also provide engaging, age-appropriate choices for our students' self-selected reading. My goal is to create lifelong readers, learners, and thinkers. The right book at the right time for the right kid can literally save a life. Over the years, I've received notes and emails, been stopped in the grocery store, once even pulled aside at a rock concert, so a former student or parent could thank me for the books I provided or recommended. And often, those are the very books that this bill would seek to remove.
So please wrap up your remarks. Thank you.
Librarians right now are discouraged. We want to provide those life-saving stories to our students. We want to find the right book for the right kid at the right time. So please trust librarians to be professionals and trust each family to make their own decisions at the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Representative Mendive.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Gregory Taylor.
Gregory, is the Bible available in your school library?
Yes,
Mr.
it is.
Taylor. Representative Mendive. So you're going to keep coming back through me, and
Yes.
it's a pain, but that's how we do it.
I
So-
understand.
Sorry. Yes, Representative Mendive. Oh, you're good. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Representative
may I
Mihart.
ask him a question?
Mr. Taylor, please return. Yes.
Madam Chair, Mr. Taylor, and only because you're a librarian, and I don't mean to belabor this, but would you please explain for my benefit what the benefit of obscene material is to a child?
Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. We don't provide obscene materials. I don't think children should have obscene materials.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, oh, Representative Birch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for a very quick question.
Yes.
Roughly, the library that you work at, how many books are in that library?
Mr. Taylor.
About 12,000.
Mr. Birch. Oh, that's what you want to know, 12,000. All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate you. Okay, so now we're going to go to Rochelle Ottoson, and she is from Rathdrum, here in person. We're glad you made it here safely. Your for the record information, and the floor is yours. You have 2 minutes. And you have handouts. The page will come get them. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Rochelle Ottoson, elected trustee for Community Library Network in Kootenai County. I'm not representing my library system, but my experience as a parent, educator, library member, and trustee. I wholeheartedly support this bill because children are frequently being harmed, sometimes permanently, by materials in some Idaho libraries and schools. I grew up loving school, books, and libraries. Unfortunately, over the past few decades, some bad actors increasingly exploit obscenity exemptions. 2/3 of my children have been thus harmed. There are many good libraries and schools, but the bad actors need to be curbed from violating the public trust, damaging children and the reputation of the good institutions. Hoping my board would publicly oppose the worst things I could think of, I asked if children's programs on prostitution, pedophilia, and bestiality were next. I was shocked when one board member replied that, quote, children have a right to be exposed to everything, end quote. Last year, a local teacher and library director were on an HRAI book access panel discussion. The panel, with no dissent, stated that it's really important that the libraries have these provocative books that parents don't want their kids to have. Parents' choice is purposely bypassed and unsuspecting children are exposed. Children have a right to their innocence and mental health. Arizona, like many states, doesn't have these exemptions. Their main research library said it is easy and cheap to comply with the law, and no one has ever been charged, and there's a copy of that in the paperwork. There's just something seriously wrong when adults demand to be able to promote obscenity and pornography to minors. And trust me, it's in the libraries. I've seen it, I've heard it. God, nature, our legislature, SCOTUS, and common sense have determined we must protect children. A society that doesn't protect its children is lost. Please be courageous and vote yes to protect vulnerable children from institutionalized psychological damage. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Birch,
Thank you,
for a
Madam Chair,
question.
for two very quick questions.
Yes,
Is your local library board elected by the community?
Ms. Ottoson. You always have to go through the
I-
chair. I'm so sorry, Ms. Ottoson.
Yes, we are elected by our local community.
Thank you.
And
Follow-up?
And roughly how many books are there in your library?
Ms. Ottoson. That's a hard one. Just
Oh,
a
there's
round,
So many figures float. I'm not sure.
a bunch.
Yeah.
All right.
Give or take a few.
Give or take a few. Thank you so much. We really appreciate, I'm glad you got here safely.
Thank you.
All right. We have Alex Stein, and after him will be Representative Crane. Not you. So Alex Stein, virtual. I'm going to do two against. I'm going to let you do another four, and then we'll get him on. And so Representative Crane, Brent Crane, please come, and then we'll do two against. So
Thank you, Madam Chair,
yeah,
for
just in the
indulging.
interest of time.
If
And you want the page to
forward and-
come?
Yeah,
Yes.
the page, you don't want to look at those, so we've got a parental advisory on the front.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Brent Crane, State Representative, District 13 in Nampa. Handing out material that we had last year in the House State Affairs Committee when we brought this issue forward, so it's for your purview. Representative Mathias asked a pertinent question about, with regards to, what was the rejection? What the problem is, Representative, is currently right now there is exemption in Idaho law that if a librarian hands an obscene material to a minor, they're not subject to the obscenity laws. They have a defense against it. Think of it this way. Would we allow a school nurse to have an exemption if she handed out methamphetamine or marijuana? Absolutely not. We wouldn't do that. We would go, whoa, that's crazy. Yet we have that built into our current law. This bill is simply trying to fix that particular problem. Last year, so the only reason I'm testifying is this bill was in our committee last year and education didn't have to hear it. But how we got here is House Bill 666 came forward last year, got stuck in the Senate because it had criminal and it had civil penalties. And the criminal penalties the Senate felt was too strong. So this year we came back, and I apologize, Madam Chair, I thought it would be back in my committee, did not realize we had put this difficult burden on you, but we removed the criminal penalties. There are no criminal penalties. Civil penalties, $10,000. Maybe that's too much. If you ask me what I think you guys should do, I think you probably ought to send this to general orders. You probably ought to negotiate with the libraries. I know the sponsor of this bill was asked by the chairman to sit down with the Library Association, work something out. Library Association flat out said, nope, we're not going to agree. We're going to agree to disagree. That's not good policy. And so you guys are stuck in a dilemma today. And listening to the testimony today, you've got this bill and you've got a bill by the Library Association. Maybe the best way out is send it to general orders and see if you can force those two players to work together. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd stand for any questions.
Questions for Representative Crane?
Thank you.
I do have one question for you. When you had committee, did you allow these things to be read in public, into the public record?
So what, Madam Chairman and Madam Chairman,
Yes,
what we
thank
ended up
you.
doing is excuse the page. We let the page step out of the room because of the sensitivity of the issues. I don't feel like that, even though we have young people here, that they should have to be subject to this. So if I'm saying, hey, it shouldn't be subject in the library, it probably shouldn't be subject here. So we excused the page, let the page step out of the room, and then I warned the members. That's why I put a warning on the material today. I warned the members right up front as chairman. I said, look, this is repulsive stuff. And candidly, when you see what's in there, and I don't know the stuff that Senator Carlson handed out, I've not seen that. But when you see the stuff that's in there, this is what is in your local libraries, and there's no defensible way to say that this material is okay to be in the hands of an 8 or 10-year-old child. The problem is the libraries have known about this issue since we brought the bill last year and have done nothing to fix the issue. They didn't come forward and say, hey, we're going to fix the issue. So we've got a systemic problem here that needs resolved. So I hope that answers your question, Madam Chair.
One follow-up.
Certainly.
Were you live streaming?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I do live stream, and I also do, like you, I love virtual testimony. I love to hear from rural Idaho what's going on. And so, yes, we did live stream. But again, I gave the warning right up front that there is obscene material. Obviously, it was handed out stuff to the members, so the folks that were watching live stream couldn't see that material. I don't believe anybody read anything, but I do recall a book being displayed, and I was shocked at what is out there and what's a part of our culture. I guess I kind of live in a Pollyanna world.
It's a good world.
It is. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so
for your
much.
indulgence
We'll
today.
see you.
Madam Chair.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Representative Birch.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Crane. Since you're familiar with this topic from last year, are you aware of any library boards that are not accountable to the public?
Representative Crane.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Birch. They can be elected. They can also be appointed by the mayor. So there is a buffer that's there. What this legislation is seeking to do, however, one of the beauties, I think, of the legislation is what you guys would probably allow in Boise, in the Boise Library, is going to be reflective of the cultural values in Boise, and that's probably going to be different from Rathdrum or Nampa or Coeur d'Alene or Eastern Idaho. And I think that that's one of the ways that those that have crafted this legislation try to deal with the problem instead of saying it's one size fits all. And this book is not acceptable in Nampa, so therefore it can't be acceptable in Boise. No. If Boise's community values say that that is okay in Boise, then it's okay in Boise. And I think that that was very wise to do that.
Representative Birch.
A follow-up, Madam
Yes.
Chair? It would seem that the recourse that any community has, whether it's Boise or elsewhere, is in fact who they elect to be on their library boards, or the people who are elected to appoint members of a library board. So to say there is no recourse, that this is the only recourse for any local community to address their concerns, I'm not sure that's completely accurate.
I think you answered this, but Representative Crane.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Birch. So one of the recourses, as you're well aware in this political process, there is the ballot box that's a recourse, but also if parents are frustrated that those individuals are not continuing to listen to them, this legislation provides the ability to say, look, we think this book is objectionable. We can take it to court and have that conversation if you want to, or maybe you'd decide to put this book in another section of your library and not make it available to minors.
Thank you, Representative Crane. Representative Wisniewski.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Representative Crane. Can you tell us what the term of office is for a library board trustee?
Representative Crane.
Madam Chair and Representative Wisniewski, this would be a guess. This would not be, I guess it's 4-year term.
Representative Wisniewski.
Follow-up, Madam
Yes.
Chairman, Representative Crane.
I look like Birch, I understand that.
I'm not going to make a decision as to who's the better looking. It's a compliment.
Moving on, gentlemen.
Does it seem reasonable to the average person that we should wait for a 4-year term or even a 2-year term before we take action at the ballot box to fix a problem that is continually occurring day by day for a bunch of youngsters viewing this material in the public libraries or in a school library? Does that seem
Representative
reasonable
Crane.
to you?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman Yamamoto and Representative Wisniewski. That's the question you're going to have to ask yourselves today. I have my personal belief, and I don't think it is. I also think that parents should have the ability, if they have a board, it can change based on how the makeup of that board is. So I think that parents should consistently have the ability, as new books we're not getting new books every 4 years. So I think that they should have the ability to police. These are taxpayer dollars. That's the difference about this. These are your dollars. These are our dollars. And I think that taxpayers should have the ability, if there's a book that's in question, they should be able to go to the library. And if the library continues to refuse, then they have another remedy that they can seek out.
Thank you, Representative Crane. We'll let you get to your committee.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you so
it.
much. So we're going to do 2 against. And so the first person is Alex Stein, and he is virtual. Is he queued up? Okay. you double click it? Okay. Oh, here he goes, arriving shortly. Mr. Stein, can you hear us?
Yes. Okay. Hey, guys. So listen, my name's Alex Stein, Post Falls, District 5. And I'm honestly just really scared. I'm a proud member of NAMBLA. And I'll be honest, like, people like R. Kelly, they persecute R. Kelly. They say he was bad. But if he didn't have access to a lot of these materials, he wouldn't have made the good music that he made. Yeah, he did some bad stuff to children, but have you ever heard those songs? I believe I can fly. We could never have gotten that. And yeah, he touched some stuff and he did some stuff with some kids, and that's bad. I'll admit that's not great. But listen, you're going to have some what we call collateral damage in this culture war. And as a member of NAMBLA, we need kids to have access to this material. I don't understand why you guys are being so prude. I mean, literally, it's like, have you guys heard of the internet? Have you ever heard of, you can type in anything in a search engine, you're going to get a lot worse stuff, and that's a little library. So you're going to get mad at a little librarian. Listen, I'm a member of NAMBLA, and even I think this is ridiculous. So it's like, listen, let a child choose. Age is just a number. You guys are age phobic. You're ageist. I don't see any children in there. I just see a bunch of elderly people basically arguing about, ridiculous stuff that we're trying to censor freedom of speech. Have y'all heard of the First Amendment? Listen, NAMBLA, we are a proud association of men. And what we want to do is we're the Man-Boy Love Association, and we cannot love a boy if they're not going to have access to our materials or our pamphlets, and that's where we put them oftentimes are in public libraries. So if you're going to try to restrict our free speech, NAMBLA will file lawsuits against Idaho that you guys have never seen. And I'm telling you, listen, I'm just a NAMBLA member from Post Falls. I cannot change the world, but these young boys, they can change the world. The next R. Kelly can come up and actually change the world with their talent and with their art. So you are limiting art, you're limiting expression. These kids should be able to express and watch whatever they want. I don't like R ratings on movies. I think they should be able to go to adult theaters. I don't understand why you have to limit like the expression that we have as a society to be free and to follow the First Amendment. But apparently you guys want to limit the First Amendment in Idaho. And as a National Man-Boy Love Association member, thank you. Man-Boy Love for life. Thank you guys.
I don't know if that was for or against, but there we have free speech at its whatever it is. So he signed up for against. I'm going to leave it there. Nope, we're doing another against, and that would be Sherry Hughes. And this one is also virtual. Chalice, yes. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Yeah, I stole that line from Forrest Gump. I did. Okay, he's arriving shortly. She is arriving shortly. Okay, Sherry, can you hear us?
I can, thank you.
And we can see you. Your further record information, and you may begin.
Thank you, Committee Chair Yamamoto and the committee members for this opportunity to remotely provide testimony on House Bill 139. I am Sherry Hughes, Idaho native and current resident of Chalice, Idaho. I am speaking against this bill, and shockingly, I did read this bill. As an avid reader and for my entire life in rural Chalice, Idaho, the small but important public library here has always played a huge role in my life. My parents were single family farmer ranchers who rarely had extra money for buying books, but my brother, sister, and I looked forward to the short time every 2 weeks when Mom would drop us off at the library for an hour while she did business around town. My siblings and I would load up on enough books to complete our school projects, fuel our imaginations until the next run to town. Each of us always checked our limit of books every time. I was mesmerized by science fiction, my sister by Shakespeare, and my brother by all things sports. Family discussion in the evening was often centered around one of these books. I read To Kill a Mockingbird and A Wrinkle in Time at 12 years old, books that are both on the list to be restricted. I eventually came back to serve on the library board here for several years. Personal responsibility is something I also grew up with in Central Idaho. My parents did not expect the librarian or the library board to monitor my behavior or censor my choice of books. That was my parents' responsibility, a very dear-holded Idaho value.
Now for this bill to be holding voluntary public library and school boards accountable through threat of civil monetary liability for personal choices that should be monitored by engaged family is very disturbing. No one is forcing anyone to read specific books. You can walk by those books, but in America, you don't get to make that choice for me or anyone else. And who decides what falls into this bill's definition of harmful? Those who have testified as to having issues with being groomed or having a porn addiction, I would seriously doubt they got that happen in a library or a school library.
Please
Thank
wrap
you.
it up.
I'll stand for
There you
questions.
go. Right on the money. Thank you so much. So now, Nina Beasley, you're for the record information, and you may begin.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Nina Beasley. I'm a resident of Rathdrum, Kootenai County. I'm a wife and mother of 5 amazing children, and I'm asking you to please support House Bill 139. The preamble to the U.S. Constitution states, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." The Constitution of the state of Idaho states, Section 24, promotion of temperance and morality. The first concern of all good government is the virtue and sobriety of the people and the purity of the home. The legislature should further all wise and well-directed efforts to the promotion of temperance and morality. This legislature has a fiduciary responsibility to fulfill these obligations. For almost 2 years, we have shown Kootenai County Community Library Network and the Coeur d'Alene Library that sexually explicit obscene material is in the youth section in our libraries. The library board and legislature and the previous lady keep saying it's the parents' responsibility. How does it make this legislature feel to know our legislature and library and school boards are responsible for distributing porn to kids using our hard-earned tax dollars? A man, he came into one of our library board meetings and stated he was convicted of a sex crime with a minor and stated it all started with porn when he was a teenager. He asked the library board to remove the porn, and they didn't. In an interview, Ted Bundy, he stated, it all started with porn. Title 18 statute states that it is unlawful to distribute obscene material to kids unless you are a school or library. The state has institutionalized harm to kids. That needs to change now. If it is unlawful and wrong for you or I to distribute these harmful materials to a minor, it is wrong for a library or school to do it. The content and damage are the same. And according to United Families International, anywhere where you have permitted porn to be in that community, it has increased murder, rape, and child molestation. And I do not believe that that is something that we want to promote in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, next, Lance McGrath in person. As he's coming up, we have one more farther away, and then we'll be here in Boise. So, Mr. McGrath, you're for the record information.
Yes, good morning. Lance McGrath. I live in Nampa in District 12. I am the president of the Idaho Library Association. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the House Education Committee. I'm here today to speak in opposition to House Bill 139 as a father, a Christian, a freedom-loving American, a native Idahoan, a librarian, and a resident of District 12 in Nampa. Mr. Crane is my representative. My official role this morning is the president of the Idaho Library Association. House Bill 139 proposes changes to existing law that would require public and school libraries to massively overhaul their collections, policies, and practices in an effort to unnecessarily protect young people from constitutionally protected materials. The members of the Idaho Library Association, let me state, care about Idaho children. Library workers are parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. I myself am the father of 3 children who I love very much. Idaho libraries, whether school or public, do not provide materials that are harmful to minors. Libraries are committed to providing access to information and resources that serve the needs and interests of all members of their communities. Public and school library staff follow board-approved selection policies to ensure quality. Legitimate materials are included in the collection. Librarians believe parents have rights and responsibilities to guide their children's use of school and public libraries. Library staff work with parents to target access for children based on age, reading level, and subject matter. Staff can help parents teach youth to access information that meets family values and is of good quality. This bill would not only be prohibitively expensive to implement, but would also pose a significant threat to First Amendment rights and the principles of intellectual freedom that are central to libraries' missions. The government has a duty to protect the rights of all citizens, including minors, but it cannot do so by infringing on the fundamental rights of free speech and access to constitutionally protected information. We implore this committee to support the vital role that libraries play in promoting access to information and intellectual freedom. We urge you to vote no on House Bill 139. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Ehart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. McGrath. It seems like you might be the perfect person to ask this question. At what age can a minor go to the library by themselves?
Mr. McGrath.
Chairman Yamamoto, that would be up to the local library policy.
Follow-up.
Representative Ehart.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Give us some examples of various age groups that can they be in there by themselves at 8, 10, 12? Can you give me an example? 16?
Mr. McGrath.
Again, Chairman Yamamoto, Representative Ehart, that would be up to the local policies and the decisions of parents. I would expect that that would be a local issue.
One last follow-up.
Okay, quickly.
Indeed. So, Madam Chairman, Mr. McGrath, I see we're having a difficult time answering this. I guess I'm just wondering, is it possible that a minor can be in the library by themselves? Maybe that's a better question to ask. Can be in the library by themselves without a parent?
Mr. McGrath.
Chairman Yamamoto, the last time I checked, libraries don't have armed guards at the front door keeping kids out.
Thank you. So, we're going to let one more person testify, so unless there's just a burning question, that's all the time we're going to have left, and then they're going to get to wrap up. So thank you. You have something you want to
I
turn in?
have my testimony to submit the
You
written.
bet.
Do I? Oh, thank you.
So the last person we will hear from is Kathy Thompson, and she's in person. Give for the information, and you may begin.
Thank you. I'm Kathy Thompson from District 24, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. Thank you, Chairman Yamamoto and committee today. As has been mentioned, there's a loophole in the law created by Section 1517D. I understand it happened in 1972. I have no idea what they were thinking. But the question is, which of these two bills best closes that loophole? And I believe that House Bill 227 misses the mark, and here is why. The adoption timeframe of the selection and access policy virtually guarantees minimal parental input because it has to be done like a month before October 1st, and that pushes it back into August, and many parents might not be aware of it. Parents must challenge materials at an open board meeting where members of the community can provide input in response to the challenge, and I believe this stacks the deck against parents and is not conducive to a fair hearing. Thirdly, the library card policy stated in 227 fails to restrict access at all and only serves to make the parents at fault should their child gain access to harmful materials. And finally, it does nothing to address obscene materials in public libraries. It only addresses school libraries. And I did research, and in the 30 school districts in my area, I found 9 specific titles. They were throughout all of those public and school libraries. I had no idea. It was so rampant. So I am sure that the American Library Association approves House Bill 227. Rest assured, Idaho's conservative parents do not. What we do support is House Bill 139, and here's why. What constitutes obscenity is clearly defined as outlined by the standards of the U.S. Supreme Court and the Miller test in that bill. It covers school and public libraries. It requires that reasonable steps are taken to restrict access to harmful materials. This is not a book ban. The books are still there. They just are in a different area to be accessed. And the parents that want those materials for their children can get those materials.
Wrap it up. Thank you.
And I just want to say that good people don't bow before evil. Please support House Bill 139. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know there are probably committee members who are, she was referencing the next one, but I just felt like I wasn't going to shut it down. So yeah. Okay, she was trying to compare and contrast. All right, so at this point, that completes public testimony, and you, Representative Crane or Senator Carlson, I'm not sure, you're going to tag team, that's fine, and if Mr. Kanzati as well. So, Representative Crane.
You good?
You can turn your written testimony in.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee for your time. So I'm just going to close with a couple of the key points that I've already stated. Again, our Idaho Constitution, Article 3, Section 24, has the promotion of temperance and morality. It's the first concern of all government and the virtue of sobriety of the people and the purity of the home. The legislature should further all wise and well-direct efforts for the promotion of temperance and morality. Again, the 2003 landmark case of the United States versus the American Library Association. All members of the Supreme Court agree that libraries have a legitimate and compelling interest in protecting young library users from material that's inappropriate to minors. So this has already been talked about in our Constitution, that we have an obligation to do something. It's already been settled on a national level at the U.S. Supreme Court. Again, the purpose of the bill, we heard some more of the narrative today. It's not a book ban bill. That's not what this is. We're simply asking that libraries take a reasonable effort to restrict access to that information for minors. You know, in closing, I had a thought hit me. I'll be bringing a controversial topic on Friday. I'll be bringing a human sex trafficking bill. And in that legislation, you work with prosecutors, Attorney General's office, different folks like that to help draft the legislation. You don't work with those that are engaged in human sex trafficking to draft the legislation. They're not drafting their own. And I'm not likening that. What I'm saying is that if you're trying to rein in somebody, if they write their own bill, they know they can play within those parameters. And I think that's very important for us to consider. That's what we're here to do. It's our job to write this. So, Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Carlson.
Cindy Carlson's District 7. Parents can access these books for their kids. So if they really want access for their kids, they will still be able to access them because, once again, we're not banning them. The objective of this legislation is not to attack librarians, but to protect kids. Institutions, schools, and libraries can afford to fix this if we want to protect kids. Literary works such as the Bible are not affected by this legislation, or To Kill a Mockingbird is not affected by this legislation. They have literary value for kids. Research has been done on these books, and so yes, I have a list I'm building, but this is not a list that we are banning. This is just a list of things that we know are available in different libraries across the state. We're not picking in one area. It is across the entire state. If you're interested in knowing some of that information for your own district, I'm happy to share some of that information with you. It is up to the institutions to take reasonable steps to remove access to minors. Some schools have declared publicly this material is not in their schools. We have found kids do have access to harmful material online and at schools and libraries. We must protect our kids. Harmful material is defined in the bill. I just wanted to clarify all those things. And that I believe that's it.
Thank you, Senator.
Please vote to send this to what we call to the floor or another avenue if you have concerns.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Price. Oh, no, it's Representative Mendive. Pardon me. She's looking
Thank
at
you,
me
Madam
like,
Chair.
what?
For a motion.
A motion is in order.
I move we send House Bill 139 to the floor with a due pass recommendation, and if I might speak to that briefly.
Yes.
Thank you. Actually, I found it very encouraging to find out that the Bible is available in a public school library. I thought the Bible had been banned from our public schools years ago. I will point out that our constitutional form of government was based on biblical principles. In the book of Isaiah, it says that the Lord is our king, our judge, and our lawgiver. That's the basis for our government. I think that if more people actually read the Bible, we probably wouldn't be here having this discussion today. So I do think we need to send this forward to pass.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Mathias.
Madam Chair, are we allowed to ask any more questions of the sponsors?
Absolutely.
Awesome. I have a question about the definition of sexual conduct on page 3. And I'm just curious, it reads sexual conduct means any act of homosexuality, but it doesn't include any act of heterosexuality. And I'm just curious why that is.
It looks like Mr. Kanzati would like to address that. Is that okay with you, Representative Crane and Senator Carlson? Is that fine? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Mathias. I'm trying to find the definition for sexual conduct right now. Page 1, subsection 3. Okay. So the sexual conduct that includes homosexuality would still need to meet the definition for obscenity. So a homosexual relationship in a literary book would not meet that definition. We're talking about homosexual obscene acts. And again, this definition is already existing in state code. It's in 18-1514 Idaho Code.
Nice.
And it's been there since 1972.
Follow up? You good? Okay. Representative Mathias.
Yeah, Madam Chair, so if it's covered elsewhere through the definition of obscenity, which is also a term that's not defined in this bill, why is the word homosexuality in there? And why isn't heterosexuality in there?
Mr. Kanzati.
Madam Chair and Representative Mathias, so just so that we're clear, harmful to minors is the same thing as obscenity as it relates to minors. Those are synonyms under federal case law. Anything that, the definition for harmful to minors is essentially the definition for obscenity as it relates to minors under federal case law. This is just a list of examples. It's not an exhaustive list. Obscene homosexual acts, obscene heterosexual acts, obscene sex acts in general are all under the purview of this definition.
Representative Garner.
Madam Chair, just to talk to the motion.
The motion. You have the floor.
I'm very concerned about this House bill simply on the grounds of freedom of speech and local control. I know as when I served on my school board that we had some parents come forward that they were concerned about the book 1984 that was in the library, and it was being studied by our seniors. Now the school board met and we came up with a plan to allow alternate books of study. I think that happens on most instances of the local control. The other thing that concerns me is some of this stuff that has been passed around today I've read, and it is not any different than what I see in the Bible or in To Kill a Mockingbird. And so are we going to say that after a certain cutoff date it has literary value? I don't see how we can do that, and because of these reasons, Madam Chair, for a substitute motion.
Substitute motion.
I move that we hold House Bill 139 in committee.
I have to write things down or I forget, so you'll have to just bear with me here. All right, so the substitute motion is that we hold House Bill 139 in committee. Is there any discussion regarding that? Representative Lantine.
I'm going to support the substitute motion for some very narrow reasons. One, I'm disturbed by the 4 years. Well, why does it take 4 years to decide you're going to bring suit against a library or a school or whoever you're signing? That part bothers me. That needs to be much shorter. Criminal things, I can only have a year to file. So why would this be 4 years? 10K, that may not be a big deal to the Boise Public Library, but the Filer Middle School Library, that was like 4 years worth of books, the purchase of new books. So that 10,000 it might as well be $1 million. They couldn't do it. Okay, and so things. Why doesn't the bill include attorney's fees for both sides? So in other words, if you file suit and it wasn't considered frivolous, it went all the way to the judge, and the judge sided in the favor of the library, why can't the library get attorney's fees from the person who filed the suit? I think that's only fair. That's a fairness to me. Both sides should have been included in that same paragraph. Who decides whether it's literary value or not? Who decides for sure what's obscene? Do we have to take everything to a judge to get a final decision? Those parts concern me. I've had experience with people being concerned about some books in the Twin Falls Public Library. I made a point to check them out. They were adamant that they should be out of there, and I read them like, what's the problem here? So in other words, my thought process was different. And one of them, I think the title of the book that they were very disturbed about said Johnny had two mommies. Okay, and it was about a couple who had adopted a child, or one of them had a child. I can't remember whichever it was, and to them that was obscene. To me, that was not. Okay, so I will be voting against this. They talked about take for the ballot box. Not everybody gets elected on the same year on a library board or appointed on the same year. There are staggered terms. There's typically people come up for election or come up to be appointed almost every year. So that if you had concerns and you wanted to use that avenue to change the makeup of a board, you start it 1 year at a time. Okay. I hope truly that if something is truly obscene, that we are moving it out of the children's section. That's not my problem there at all. I believe that's true. I want to see that. I'm not going to reference a future bill, but I think there are better ways to do this than this particular bill. So I will be voting for the substitute motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just remind the audience that as hard as it is to hear some things, that we just don't react, and it's very challenging sometimes. And believe me, I'm one of those people I understand. But Representative Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To speak against the second motion.
You have the floor.
Well, I am not for holding this, and Chairman just spoke about how it's hard to hold back stuff. I find myself, we talked about some different books, and I heard the reference of the 1984 book. I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. I can't believe that we're discussing through a subject at the time of the loophole was created. If any of these materials that we've seen today were passed out, you'd have been arrested. I'd also like to point out that if a parent checked out this material and brought it home to their own children, they'd be in violation of state pornography laws protecting minors from pornography. We have a public library in the upriver area of Benewell County that I know the librarian well, and when this subject first came up last time, I went and spoke to her. Now they've done something on their own. They've cleaned out all of this, and those things that people still wanted, they have in an adult section where children aren't allowed to check out books. That's what this bill asks to be done. In that same library, because they have all kinds of craft stuff going on, they have a cabinet in the workroom that's locked. It has no pornography, but it has chemicals that if your children walked in there and had access, it would injure them or kill them. And if that happened, they would be liable. We are talking about protecting children, not from idealistic things, from graphic pornography that exists and they have access to. Therefore, I will be voting against the alternate motion.
Representative Clow.
Madam Chairman, for a motion?
Motion. What? This is our last one.
I know.
Okay.
I can count.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we send this to the amending order of the 12th order of business. I should be specific. House Bill 139.
You bet. Thank you. So now the discussion will be on the last motion that Representative Cloud just made, which is to send House 139 to the amending order. Yes, do you want to speak to it?
Technically, I should have just said general order.
Or general order. Okay, let's do that. Do it right. Thank you so much. Representative Wisniewski.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to speak to the substitute alternate motion or amended motion.
Alternate motion. You have the floor.
I believe that there are some legitimate concerns that this bill has, but I think they're a minor portion of the bill, and I think that we can fix some of these issues, like perhaps the fine is too high. Perhaps some of the other issues need clarification, and I think general orders is the way to do it, and let the floor hear some of this testimony and find out some of the details of this bill. If we kill it here, the rest of the body, the rest of the 70 members of our House does not get a chance to hear the arguments for and against this bill. So, thank you.
Representative Mathias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a response to the claims about pornography. You know, I don't really feel the need to get too much into the nature of these works. I know my abilities in this building, and one of my few abilities is to draw attention to what makes bills good bills and what makes bills bad bills. I think we're all in agreement that none of us, absolutely none of us, want to or do distribute pornography to minors. But the word pornography shows up nowhere in this bill. So we keep using this word to draw our attention in that direction, but it's not in here. So we have to come back to the bill. And we have to come back to definitions. And with all due respect, the definitions in law cannot just be lists of examples. If we mean something, we have to say it. And if anyone wants help converting their feelings into words, I'd be glad to help. But short of that, there are some problems here.
Representative Ehart.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to speak to supporting Representative Clow's motion. We're kind of a new committee, meaning that many of us are new and haven't been on here. I myself am beginning my 6th year. And so some of my colleagues here and I have been through a lot and have been able to see some more examples than maybe some of our new friends and colleagues here. But I will say that this material and the material that I read in the books that have been brought before me, that I myself have brought before this committee over the last couple of years, it is not the same as the Bible. And there is absolutely no comparison. So I would hope that we'd recognize that we do have a problem. Pornography wasn't used, so material harmful to minors is people. Our First Amendment, our constitutional republic, never intended to protect decadence. As a matter of fact, the Bible being the primary source of the educational material for the first couple hundred years, our founders, including Dr. Benjamin Rush, specifically saying never to remove the Bible from the teaching. If you did, you would end up in great disarray and problems. was never intended to protect decadence. I asked earlier what age kids can go to the library, because we keep seeming to say, well, the parents can keep the kids from that. I know I grew up in a different era, but I was allowed to go to the library by myself, walk there at the age of 8. I wandered through the library. I found many of the books that I would read that were on display, and I took great joy in that. But I wandered myself through the library, and I had no parent there to protect me. And so, as our former colleague, Representative Gary Marshall, would say, we are the legislative body of the state of Idaho. Everything is not a matter of local. We have statutes in here that we, as a legislative body of the state of Idaho, have placed here. It is our job and our high duty to continue to protect it. And so, Madam Chairman, I would ask my colleagues to please give this an opportunity to go to amending orders, or general orders, I'm sorry, and at least support that, where we give it a chance to be changed. I think a couple of those changes I think our colleagues are willing to make. Thank you.
Representative McCann.
Madam Chair, it's a point of order.
Yes.
There's a gentleman holding up a book in the audience that's against rules, and it's inappropriate, and he either should stop that or be removed from.
Thank you. I saw it, and I was just hoping your arm would get tired. It's okay. Thank you for taking it down. All right, Representative McCann.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would call for the question.
Okay, the question is, for the substitute alternate motion is sending it to the general orders. The one before it was, the substitute was to hold it in committee, and the first one was to send it to the floor with a due pass, so we have to go backwards.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
May I just ask for clarification, I want to make sure I understand exactly what the process is in general order, so people understand that process as well. I think I know, and maybe it's totally appropriate to ask.
For the parliamentarian.
Ask the parliamentarian.
Indeed.
So, and for some new, here's my understanding, please verify me if you could, and this is just a question of procedure, that when something goes to general orders, people submit amendments, and there's a deadline by which they're submitted, and if multiple amendments are proposed, they are addressed before the entire House in the order in which they are submitted by time. So the first one submitted is the first one looked at. So if, let's say, 5 amendments are submitted for this bill, as soon as the first amendment that's presented before the body is approved, that's the end of it. There's no more review of any other amendments after the first one, whichever one it is accepted. So I just want to verify that that is the case. So if 3 different legislators have concerns with 3 different parts of the bill and they want to submit amendments that change 3 different parts, separately, individually change 3 parts of the bill in 3 separate amendments, if the first amendment is agreed upon, the other 2 amendments never get heard and considered. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I understand that that's the process.
Representative Clow, and he is now speaking as our parliamentarian. So yes.
Yeah, I'm not a parliamentarian for the for the floor, but you generally are correct. But I think there's sections of the bill, and if there's 2 separate sections, or a section of the bill has several amendments, then I think that section of the bill, if the first one in gets priority, and then, but if there's multiple sections, there's multiple votes on different sections of the bill. And for the public's information, a section is identified in a bill, and each bill has, I'm not sure how many are in this one. We have a section 1. This basically has 1 section, or no, there is a section 2, but so there is a priority on what is considered first, and so.
Thank you. So I would just say, Madam Chair, it's just
we're going to go at ease for a moment, and I'm going to ask Representative Cloud to call Erica and make sure of how it works, so that we make sure that we're voting the way.
Idaho in Session is sponsored by Idaho Cable Broadband Association, Association of Idaho Cities, Boise State School of Public Service, the James A. and Louise McClure Center for Public Policy Research, and the Idaho Public Television Endowment.
Thank you. So we've gone over the time that I set aside for this, but I thought it was important to get as much testimony as possible from those that have come, and all written testimony will be accepted. We are going to hear, first of all, your motion was to do what?
Yeah, I'd like, just to clarify, I said that I call for the question, not the previous question. I said I call for the question, which was on the substitute or alternate substitute motion to take it to general orders. Thanks.
Thank you. Representative Clow. So here's the explanation of what we're going to be doing.
In my 2 or 3 minute law class that I just took, the best example I can give is if the amendments are in conflict with one another, then the first one passes, the first one that was filed has priority. Okay, so as a good example, this bill has a dollar amount on page 3, $10,000. So if the first filed amendment comes in and changes it to $50,000, okay, and that passes, then any amendments in that same section that would have a different amount would not be considered.
Thank you. Representative Birch.
Right, so bottom line is that when it goes to amending orders, it is not a debate on the House floor in terms of the merits or changing or editing. It's very restrictive. And if someone changes it, let's say from $10,000 to, let's say, $9,090, and there's a second amendment that wants to remove that section, you never get to hear the second amendment because the first one's been approved and you're done. So it's a very restrictive process, as I understand it, with that clarification.
Representative Clow, I'm going to let you respond.
Thank you. I think you stated it very well. The one thing, just so everyone knows, is you cannot debate the underlying bill on the floor, only the amendment itself. You know, in other words, if someone said, I want it 50,000, they'd have to, you could debate why 50,000 is a good number or bad, but you couldn't get into any of the other sections of the bill on that motion.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking time to do that. It's important to know what you're voting for, so thank you for that indulgence. So we'll have a roll call on the substitute alternate motion to send H 139 to general order. So Secretary Benson.
Vice Chair McCann.
No.
Representative Boyle.
Yes.
Yeah, excuse me. We have to vote first on whether or not we're going to allow the question.
Sorry about that. Thank you for catching me before we
That's
went.
cutting off debate, and that's a
Thank you for
motion.
getting there before. Would you like a roll call on that one too? No. All those in favor of stopping debate and.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
point of order.
Yes.
If you're doing a question to limit debate like was presented, that takes a 2/3 vote, so therefore it has to be by roll call.
There we go. Thank you. Appreciate that. So we're going to do a roll call on for the question. Secretary Benson. So this is just to stop debate and then vote on the substitute alternate motion. So just to stop debate.
Vice Chair McCann.
No. You don't want to stop debate?
Yeah, you do. You do want to stop.
See how confusing this can be.
We are confused. Representative Boyle. Representative Clow.
Yes.
Representative Mendive.
No.
Representative Ehart. Representative Wisniewski.
No.
Representative Garner.
Yes.
Representative Hawkins.
No.
Representative Hill.
No.
Representative Lantine. Representative Nilsson.
Yes.
Representative Price.
No.
Representative Sauter.
Yes.
Representative Birch.
Yes.
Representative Galaviz. Representative Mathias. And Madam Chair Yamamoto.
Yes.
10-7.
Yeah.
Is that being 2/3?
Is that 10-7? He said it had to be 2/3.
It's not 2/3.
No, that's how I read it, not 2/3. So we will continue to have discussion on the substitute alternate motion to send H 139 to general orders. Representative Birch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the intent to provide that opportunity to the floor, but I feel that process is not sufficient to address a variety of concerns and a variety of portions of this bill that others may have, and that process is imperfect in that regard. So I think this is the time and place right now to decide one way or another about the future of this bill, and so I would respectfully not support the motion to send this to general orders.
Representative Price.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I guess I just want to say that I appreciate the sponsors looking at this as an option to fix things that people are having troubles with. This is an important subject, as we can tell by all the testimony that, and the people who didn't even get to testify. And so the fact that we're willing to look at what we can do to address the concerns that people have with this bill, to me, is a huge step in the right direction. So that's why I'll be supporting this alternate substitutive motion.
Representative, we know what you mean. Representative Mendive.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually liked my motion, but I will be supporting this amended substitute motion. I think that this does need to, maybe a little bit of work would help this bill, but this is a debate we need to have on the House floor.
Representative Souter.
Hi, Madam Chair. I can see that there certainly are some merits to this bill. I, for one, would like, and I read last night, and the other bill that we're supposed to hear today as well. I read that bill as well, and there's merits in that. I'm listening to one of the speakers earlier that said, you know, there's a process that we can work through and encourage and get a better bill. I think the message has been sent this morning that there are merits to this bill for sure, and that I think we can and should, and it's what we owe our community to sit down and get a better bill to make things work. So, and I'm not convinced that having all of this said and done on the House floor with 70 people with a lot of other influence, it just seems like that's a pretty clunky process. So my belief is that we should set this aside and that we should not go to general orders. We should listen to the other bill, whether it's today or it's another time certain. And then at that point, we can determine what we want to do. But I think we ought to listen to all of the information rather than just go down this path. I think there's merits here, and I think we owe that to all the parties involved. Thank you. So I'm not in favor of going to general orders.
Thank you. Representative Hill.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm in the favor of going to general order. I think it's time to get some more eyes on this and get some more opinions. I think it's time. Let's get it on the floor. I think that's what I would approve general order. Thank you, Madam.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So for me, I also believe there is some real good things in this bill, and the merit, for sure, we need to get some protections. I've talked to my libraries. I've been in my libraries, and so there is a process that they use, and they use it a lot. And parents come in, they go through the bills, or I'm sorry, they go through the books in question, and they deal with it. And so in that community, there's not been what I'm hearing from many of you in the north, particularly, but also down here. So on the general orders, I don't like the fact that it will be limited. And when one of the testifiers talked to us and said, gee, let's sit down with the library board, that can't happen in general orders. So I do not support going to general orders, and so I will be voting no on that motion.
Thank you. Representative Boyle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So again, if we go to general orders, you do not debate the merits of the bill. All you get to talk about is just whatever that narrow amendment is. And frankly, I am appalled that there's this kind of discussion. There is nothing wrong with this bill. $10,000. I come from a very small library, believe me. Midvale, we have 100 people in the whole town. Our librarian is a mom. She is extremely careful about what kind of books are ordered, but that is not the way it is other places. And it is our duty to protect our children. If going to general orders is the only way that we're going to get anything moved through this legislature, shame on us. But I would support that if that's the only little minute thing we can get to protect our kids. It is our duty to do that. And as a mom and a grandma, I am ashamed if we cannot.
Seeing no further lights, we are going to,
Madam Chair.
Representative Ehart.
Madam Chair, just a quick comment, because I know I already commented, but I want to make clear, as some are suggesting, that, hey, let's work with the librarians. For what it's worth, that hand has been extended many times. This is not the first time, and I just want this committee to know that, you know, if we don't send this to general orders, even if you've already spoken, you are voting to kill this legislation. And I would ask you, it may not even get heard. We may run out of time. But let us continue. Even if you thought you've already made a statement, I'm asking you, please, to send it to general orders. Please.
Thank you. I will comment that Speaker Moyle, I told him this was going to be a challenging, I didn't have to tell him, he already knew it was going to be. So running out of time, unless we're on March 24th, we're a privileged committee and that's not going to be the issue, but I do appreciate your sentiment. And so seeing no further lights, we are going to vote on the substitute alternate motion, which is to send H 139 to general orders. And we will do a roll call on this one.
Vice Chair McCann?
To send it to general orders. Okay, so you said no. You said no.
Representative Boyle? Representative Clow?
Yes.
Representative Mendive?
Yes.
Representative Ehart?
Yes.
Representative Wisniewski?
Yes.
Representative Garner?
No.
Representative Hawkins?
Yes.
Representative Hill?
Yes.
Representative Lantine? Representative Nelson? Representative Price?
Yes.
Representative Sauter?
No.
Representative Birch?
No.
Representative Galaviz? Representative Matthias?
I'm a no.
Okay, no.
So that the motion to send it to general orders has failed. And we will go to the substitute motion by Representative Gardner to hold H 139 in committee. And we will also do a roll call on that one. So this is old.
Vice Chair McCann?
Yes.
Representative Boyle? Representative Clow?
No.
Representative Mendive?
No.
Representative Ehart? Representative Wisniewski?
No.
Representative Garner?
Yes.
Representative Hawkins?
No.
Representative Hill? Representative Lantine?
Yes.
Representative Nelson?
Yes.
Representative Price?
No.
Representative Sauter?
Yes.
Representative Birch?
Yes.
Representative Galaviz? Representative Matthias? Madam Chair Yamamoto?
Yes. So the substitute motion to hold 139 in committee has passed. Thank you very much, Representative Crane and Senator Carlson. So next on our agenda is H 227. Representative Nelson. Question, Representative Sauter.
Okay, I'm just looking at the clock
Oh,
saying.
you thought it was time to go to the floor?
No, just that we're going to be tight on time on hearing this.
I know, but there are people who came from out of town, and there are already people not happy that they didn't get to speak on the first one. So, and I will say, just to get started, that any written testimony, it is welcome. It goes on the record. And we all have access to it. So, Representative Nelson, For the record information, and the floor is yours.
Madam Chair, members of the community, and members of the committee. This, I think I'm going to change up my approach here just a little bit, having to sit through all the testimony on this. I think it brings up what I think is the absolute best part of this bill, and I think there's parts here that are going to offend everybody, and that's why it makes it a good bill. So, to start what I intended, this bill sets up the process in public schools, charter schools, and public libraries as to setup of policy, addressing complaints, organization of materials, and issuing of library cards. To speed up a presentation, I guess a little bit because of time, I'd like to walk through the bill and point out some things. Section 1, this bill dictates policy. It tells local school boards by October 1st, 2023, they have to set up the process. It gives sideboards, if you would, on the process of what the policy has to include. That includes standards for the selection of library collection materials, standards for access to materials, a process under which the parent or guardian of a student may challenge any of those included materials, and a process under which parents may restrict their child's access to certain materials. It dictates that libraries have to section off their materials and not make everything available to all students. It addresses charter schools and public schools in the same format, and it addresses public libraries differently. It addresses public libraries, the requirements are the same as the public schools, but it addresses the public libraries is, I think of it as parental responsibility, which in my book is right where it should be. For a minor to get a public library card, the parent has to sign that they are responsible and they're approving their child to go into the library, and by implication, they're going to review the materials themselves. I could talk longer, but I think you all have the text of the bill in front of you. I'm a local control guy. I have huge faith in local boards to come around. To my way of looking at this is everybody is responsible exactly where they should be. The local ballot box. Whoever appoints or elects library boards, they are elected. It's interesting as you look through the state, the people that are having issues and the ones that aren't having issues. I'm associated with a bunch of school districts that very carefully review materials, and I think something that may have slipped through here is everybody makes a mistake once in a while. The libraries that I think are very successful, they go back and fix those mistakes. Materials come out, they get put in different sections. They frankly listen to their patrons and the citizens of their community. If your community doesn't have that happen, the resource and the means to do that is certainly the ballot box. With that, I guess I would submit to questions.
Representative Nelson, I just wanted to let you clarify the reason why somebody said the other day, why is the public charter school set apart? And you responded, I wanted to give you an opportunity because those in the audience are maybe wondering.
Thank you. It's been pointed out, somebody on this committee pointed it out, the charter schools are public schools. They're exactly right. If you look at the first paragraph of this bill, it's a whole list of where this bill would go into code. And that's simply because in Idaho code, public schools are addressed in one manner, and another section of code, charter schools are addressed. So once again, both sides are right. They're both public schools, but they're addressed differently in code. If this bill passes, it has to be put in different spots in the code.
Thank you. Are there questions for Representative Nelson? Representative Price.
So are we leaving it up to local control on whether we verify that the child actually got the parent's permission I've known that kids have forged their parents' signatures on school things. So are we leaving it up to local control that they're verifying that it's actually the parent's signature and that the parent is giving permission?
Representative Nelson.
Yes.
Seeing no further lights at this time, Representative Ehart.
Sorry, Madam Chair, good representative. When kind of following up on that, I was just trying to look it up in the bill. So if I understand this correctly, that a parent, all they have to do is to sign the library card, and then essentially that absolves the librarians of any responsible of harmful material distributed to minors. Would that be correct?
Representative Nelson.
Absolutely. I guess to look at the other side of the issue, some people don't view a public library as a place to babysit kids. It's a parental responsibility to go through that. Like I said in this, everybody isn't going to be happy with this. If somebody unloads all their kids at a public library, there simply aren't enough people in a public library to make sure somebody doesn't sneak into one set of books and grab something that's not appropriate. I think part of to get behind this bill is we're not debating cell phones, but frankly, if your child is in a public school and there's one unblocked cell phone, everything we've seen today, it's on there. The law enforcement people in my community, when you talk to them, the ones that work with those kind of things, said, frankly, as a parent, you have to just assume your child has been exposed to all this. No matter how much work we do from law enforcement side, you just can't get a hold of everything that's available on cell phones. So, like I said at the beginning, this dictates what public schools should do very tightly. I think public libraries, not as much. And once again, that's left exactly where it should be with parents.
She's pondering. Representative Ehart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess with some of the testimony that's been provided that would apply to this bill or the other bill by our librarians, it seems that we are presupposing that parents are there with their minor children. I tried to clarify that, couldn't get it, but I have had some further clarification. So we're just basically saying, I'm not trying to rephrase that differently. I'm just trying to understand that. So can a child go in to the library then without the parent and have access to the materials, but not have a library card and wander through? I mean, it used to be public libraries with tax-funded dollars was a safe place. So they are still able then to wander through without that parent, not check anything out, but still view material.
Representative Nelson.
I would say absolutely. If you've been in your public libraries, there's sections for kids. Some of them are in a basement off to the side, a different wing. Some aren't. Not to fall back on an excuse, but you have local library boards. They're more than aware of that. And when you start getting to liability and $10,000 an issue, if a kid runs over in the wrong stack, grabs a couple books, whether somebody coached him or not, we've heard testimony of $10,000 is a lot or not a lot to institutions. We can all name parents that $10,000 is a huge amount of money. And people are going to game the system. There is no perfect library bill. So, Representative Ehart, you're exactly right. Somebody can sneak into a stack on a public library, grab a book, and yeah, it may not be a perfect thing for them. And I don't see any way the public can police that, just like cell phones. It's back where it belongs, parents.
Of course, Madam Chair, I wasn't insinuating sneaking. I'm just wandering.
Your point is taken. I think we've addressed that, and what I'd like to do is go ahead and give time, and I appreciate you keeping it short so that people can testify. We are going to do the for and against, but we have this unusual situation where we have two people that kind of say they're both for and against. And so but they're from out of town as well. So I'm going to start with them. And the first is Kathy Thompson.
I spoke previously.
Yep. Okay. Well, just didn't want to leave you out. And so did Lyle Johnstone. Did you have something further to say, sir?
I'm absolutely against this bill.
That will do it. You probably need to come to I know I heard you, but we'll let you say your name for the record and so that you go, so we do it right.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. Lyle Johnstone, District 26. I am absolutely opposed to this bill. The last time I saw the theory of appointing the fox to guard the hen house ended up empty. So this is a no-go, and I'm quite appalled at the last bill's ending. So I certainly hope we can use more wisdom and proper
So now
thing
you're
to
kind
do
of
here.
moving into a not great territory.
Okay, that I'm against
Okay.
this bill.
And you made that abundantly clear. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So we have no further out of town.
I'm out of town, and I signed up.
Sure.
Can I go?
Sure.
Nina Beasley from Rathdrum, Kootenai County. I 100% oppose this bill. We have worked for 2 years in our community library network. We have shown them sexually explicit material meeting after meeting for 2 years, and they have done nothing. Everything in this bill, we already have policies. We already have all these things. And guess what? It hasn't removed books. But you know, what do you think about Chairman Yamamoto? What do you think about flogging? Because you know what? $10,000 isn't enough. And I think the Savior Jesus Christ said it's better that a millstone should be wrapped around someone's neck and cast into the sea for offending children. And you know what? You all are supposed to be lawmakers. Why don't you pray to Jesus Christ, who's the lawgiver? Because I can tell you what, he doesn't want these on our shelves.
Ma'am, point of order.
And you made a big mistake today.
Okay,
Well,
139, and you arranged it before
point
this
of
meeting.
order.
There's emails. It's all over the place.
I'm going to let her do what you know what? I am not upset with you. And I see that, and I let you say, now you've had your piece, and now you need to stop. Thank you. All right, so we've done 2-4, so we're going to do, or 2 against, we're going to do 2-4. Lance McGrath. What's that? She has it right.
Good morning, Lance McGrath. I live in Nampa, District 12, and I am the president of the Idaho Library Association. Before I begin my prepared remarks, I did want to respond to a couple of statements that were raised earlier about collaborating with legislature, with working groups on a bill. And we did have Idaho House Resolution 23 that was passed last year. Should have directed the House to reach out to the library community to work with us on drafting legislation. We did not receive any communication on that. We had a working group ready. We had also reached out to Representative Crane, Jaron Crane, and he rebuffed our attempts to collaborate. But we have a point of agreement, and that's we care about Idaho children, and this is a shared value that I hope that we can share, continue, and carry forward and help have some conversation. I'm here today to speak in support of House Bill 227. As a father, a Christian, a freedom-loving American, a native Idahoan, and a librarian and a taxpayer. My official role is as the president of the Idaho Library Association. House Bill 227 proposes to make reasonable steps to restrict access to certain materials by children while at the same time protecting the rights of adults and parents to access constitutionally protected materials. I understand we do not name bills in the Idaho legislature as a matter of course, but I like to think of this as the Idaho Shield Act because it empowers parents to make choices for their families about what library materials they deem appropriate for their families. The family shield, but it does not dictate what other parents and families may decide is appropriate for them. They have their own shields that they can use. This bill empowers parents and guardians with substantial authority over library access for minors in their charge. They can choose levels of school library access and whether or not a minor child gets a public library card. House Bill 227 codifies best library policies and practices. This ensures school and public libraries have local control while also complying with state law. Collections must be properly labeled by intended audience with distinct areas for shelving. Under this law, libraries need to have clearly identified materials reconsideration processes. This bill ensures that all Idaho citizens have a clear process for engaging with their libraries and expressing their opinions without dictating what others are able to access at their library. Idaho libraries take the rights of citizens to access constitutionally protected materials very seriously. Liberty, personal responsibility, local control, individual and parental rights, reasonableness. These are Idaho values. House Bill 227 supports all of these cherished values, American, Idahoan. Please support this bill, House Bill 227. Thank you.
There's a question, Representative Matthias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. McGrath, could you explain the difference to me from your perspective as a librarian? What is the difference between a minor having access to potentially objectionable material versus a minor obtaining potentially objectionable material?
Mr. McGrath.
Madam Chairwoman, having access would, to me, as a librarian, as a parent, as a person, it would mean it would be in the collection. It would be accessible on a shelf somewhere, even if it was properly shelved in an area that was not designated for children. The second part of your question, sir? Obtaining would be actually gathering that material, having it in their hands, having possession of it.
Representative Ehart.
Madam Chairman, Mr. McGrath, truly for clarification, you had mentioned, and my points actually didn't have to do with the two he mentioned, but I would like to follow up. You mentioned that you'd reach out to Representative Crane. I'm assuming you meant, I don't even know their districts, the one that presented today. Which representative did you mean? And then also, you also mentioned that the group that was formed last year, just clarifying, so you were never contacted on that.
Mr. McGrath.
Chairwoman Yamamoto, yes, the representative in question, Representative Jaron Crane, the sponsor of Bill 139, District 12. And yes, the working group, to the best of my knowledge, we've never received any reach out from House leadership to establish that communication and begin that work together.
Seeing no further lights, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
So Bonnie Schuster. She's in person here. Okay.
Hello, my name is Bonnie Schuster. I'm representing myself. I live in Boise, Idaho. Thank you again for the opportunity, Chairman Yamamoto and members of the committee, to testify. If you believe that it is necessary to pass new restrictions on the ability of minors to access materials in our schools and libraries that you deem harmful, and I think from hearing the committee that's the case, then I urge you to pass House Bill 227. I have read it. I've read both. I wouldn't testify on something that I hadn't read. And I believe that House Bill 227 is more thoughtful and more workable. It appropriately places responsibility on parents to work with their schools and libraries and their children to provide further monitoring of restrictions on materials that the children can access. It also provides a robust process for community input concerning materials in the library's collection and how those materials are segregated within the library, because the bill does provide for segregation of materials within the library. But it does that without inviting financial harassment of these important and beleaguered institutions. I also wanted to mention that when I saw the process for obtaining a library card, I did reach out to the Department of Health and Welfare because I serve as a guardian ad litem in foster care cases, and I wanted to make sure that our foster care kiddos would not have a problem obtaining a library card because they need these institutions as much or more than any others. And the caseworker that I talked to said that the department would be able to sign for a library card for those children. So I thought that was an important for me to know about this. So I would urge you to pass House Bill 227. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ron Nate.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Ron Nate with the Idaho Freedom Foundation from District 34. Testifying against House Bill H 227. We don't allow drugs to be distributed to kids. We don't allow kids to be sold alcohol. We don't allow kids to be sold tobacco with or without a parent's note. We don't allow pornography from convenience stores to be sold to kids with or without a parent's note. Why would we allow libraries to distribute harmful materials to kids with or without parents' notification on a library card? House Bill 227, let's be honest, it's a symbolic bill right now because it has no teeth in it. Libraries have had decades to solve this problem. Certainly in the last year, they knew the extent of the problem because a bill was proposed last year and it was heightened. And Mr. Johnstone is right. Putting the fox in charge of the hen house is not going to solve the problem. This bill, frankly, does nothing except give cover to a few committee members who voted against children and for their libraries.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
He seems to be impugning the motives of some committee members, and I don't like it.
Yeah, Representative,
Okay.
Mr. Nate, if you
Thank you,
would
Madam Chairman.
rephrase, that would be great.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Representative. House Bill 139 has been in the committee's hands for 2 weeks. It has been withheld from the agenda until today, and I suspect that was to let 227 come forward and give them cover. You should be ashamed. Thank you.
Thank you. We have on Kirsten LeBlanc online. While she's trying to get her, I'm going to go ahead and go, another virtual. Let me see here. Margaret Ellsworth. Your for the record information. You might want to pull that mic just down a little further. Yeah, there you go.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee, thank you so much for giving me the chance to testify today. My name is Margaret Ellsworth. I'm from Boise, and I urge you to support Bill 227. I've been a library worker for years. My first job was actually right down the road at Boise Public Library, but right now my primary job is as a parent to two small children who love to visit the library once a week. This bill puts control of libraries where it belongs, in local hands and in local communities, and it sets up a process of collaboration between library workers and community members. And having sat on both sides of that, I love the idea of bringing the librarians' policy recommendations and the community members' input together to shape and form these policies. This policy recommendation will also let the librarians get back to doing the jobs that matter to my kids, running the STEM story times and running and picking out more dinosaur books for my kid to be able to get, because he's read all the ones in his library. So I am excited that this policy will both help my kids feel safe in the library and protect them, and also allow librarians to keep on with their primary mission of helping my children learn. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Ms. Ellsworth? Seeing none, thank you so much. Case 4, now we're 2 against. Well, let's. Go ahead and we can do another 4 and then we'll do 2 against if she's there.
That shortly and my shortly are different.
Yeah, I think she hung up. Okay, so we'll go on to, so I need a 4. Shawnee Burt. She's a virtual. Shawnee Burt. You know what, we're waiting for that. I'm going to go ahead and we'll do another against because it's taking too long. Gretchen Rauer. She was in person. I wonder if she's next door. So if Gretchen Rauer, if you're in the next door, we will get you as soon as you come in. So let's see. Barbara Redmond. She was in person. Okay. It's Destiny Hart. I know you're against, but you're here, so you come on forward. You're for the record info, and the floor is yours.
For the record, my name is Destiny Hart. I am a resident of Meridian in District 21. I am here to represent myself, but I will tell you that I am a Meridian Library trustee. And I'm also a mom of 4 children, ages 12 to 4. And I'm here to speak against House Bill 227 because I don't think we should have a bill regarding this issue at all. Any bill that imposes censorship on Americans and Idahoans, I think is absolutely inappropriate. I think that some of the issues that have been brought in this room today are based on falsehoods. There is no pornography in our libraries. There is no obscene material in our libraries based on the actual definitions of those words. And I take massive exception to calling librarians foxes in a hen house. I cannot think of anything less sinister than a librarian. And, you know, as a mom who feels absolutely comfortable letting their children go into the libraries, I also feel absolutely comfortable with my fellow parents in Idaho, their ability to monitor what their children read. And having visited a lot of libraries, I'm from rural north central Idaho, librarians are already doing the best work they can to provide educational materials to our children. In a way that respects the culture of the community and respects the community standards of the state of Idaho. And so, you know, this bill is vastly improved upon the last bill that we heard about. But I take a lot of issue with the fact that this has to exist at all. I think we have a solution in search of a problem. I think we're fighting a bit of a culture war here that at the end of the day doesn't actually have anything to do with library books. I can tell you that as a Meridian trustee, we have heard folks come into our library, and these issues are very, very clearly about imposing their own personal values upon the rest of the community.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Seeing no questions, thanks so much. Jessica Dorr.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Jessica Dorr, and I'm the director of the Boise Public Library. As a public librarian, I take great pride, and I'm committed to providing access and opportunity for everyone. I find joy in making sure our library meets the needs of our entire community. At our library, we work every day to make sure every single person visits our library can find a book that educates them, inspires them, entertains them, and sometimes challenges them. I report to a board of trustees, local community members appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council, who set policy and strategic direction for the library. I support House Bill 227 because it reinforces my ability to meet the needs of my community. It strengthens my board's responsibilities to provide local public oversight. As the library director, I take very seriously the trust I've been given to provide materials to all different people in our community. House Bill 227 will make sure my library and libraries across the state are consistent in how we safeguard local oversight. Recent conversations about library collections and selection policies have confirmed for me the importance of having clear and consistent policies that people know how to participate in. House Bill 227 lays out the process for how the public can work collaboratively with library staff, a director, and a board of trustees to meet community needs and standards. It reaffirms parental rights and responsibilities and reinforces the role parents have in helping their children access materials that are consistent with their own individual values. It allows librarians and parents to work as partners to ensure every child finds joy in reading and stories. I respectfully ask that you vote yes and send the bill to full House with a do pass recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. This will be our last testifier, Charity Miser, and she's online. Ms. Miser, we can see you, and hopefully,
Can you hear me too?
for the record information, and the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. My name is Charity Miser. I live in Hauser, Idaho. My community library network actually has a trustee before you today who testified on the previous bill. She was in support of it, and she understands the difficulties the community is having getting, responsiveness from our trustees. And I thank her for the time to go down there. Anyways, I would like to, I cannot read from material. It's disturbing to the soul. It's a shock on your conscience, some of this material that is not just available to the minors at our local libraries. And there are 7 in our area that are in this network. That's an $8 million budget. So they're not just available, they're prominently displayed. And I didn't really believe the extent of the issues until I read them for myself. And it was an unpleasant experience, I assure you. Specifically, one called Identical by Ellen Hopkins was on display. It has a romanticism and a glorification of everything evil that we abhor in our society. Incest, a father raping his daughter repeatedly, her turning to drugs as an escapism was glorified instead of having any adult in her life take a stand. And this is repeated in multiple works by Ellen Hopkins. The erotica of adults sexualizing children. And my problem with this bill particularly is it doesn't mention anywhere any standards for the written word, only pictures. So I apologize. The impact of pornography on children by the American College of Pediatricians defines pornography as a depiction of erotic behavior, sexual display in pictures, or the written word that is intended to cause excitement. And that is what many books on our shelves do. So I urge you to not vote for 227. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, this completes our public testimony. Representative Nelson, do you want to, we don't have a motion, do we? Would you like to respond before we? Okay. Representative Price.
Can I ask a question of what Representative Nelson presented?
Yes. Representative Price.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Representative Nelson. You mentioned cell phones where kids could get access to this material. My question is, do public dollars pay for the majority of people's cell phones? And the follow-up to that are, do public dollars pay for libraries?
Representative Nelson.
To the best of my knowledge, no on cell phones and yes on libraries.
Thank you. Representative Clow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Question for the sponsor.
Yes.
Yeah, Representative Nelson, this bill doesn't have any specific penalties. So if a library violated this policy, would they be subject to a civil suit?
Representative Nelson.
Personally, I think you better contact your local lawyer. I wouldn't represent that. There's considerable civil penalties for all kinds of things, how they're interpreted, what prosecutors bring to court. You're back to local jurisdictions again.
Representative Birch.
For a very quick question.
Yes.
Representative Nelson, would it be fair to say that public dollars pay for the Wi-Fi that might be available inside a library building?
Representative Nelson.
To the best of my knowledge, most libraries do have Wi-Fi. I think to reference some of Representative Clow's work in the past of where a public library sets up their filters for pornography when somebody's trying to access it within the library. If I get the point right, it was originally the filter was set up so the computers within the library were filtered. But if somebody sat in the parking lot and logged on, it was not filtered. And I think the whole point of his whole bill was to move the filter so that anybody that accessed through that Wi-Fi, it was filtered. If I represented that wrong, please correct me.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good gentlemen. In your bill, I just want to clarify for some of the questions that I'd heard, some of the testimony. One said there's no, it doesn't do anything to the written word. And in section 1, on page 1, under harmful to minors, and it describes the definition of harmful. Then it goes on to number 2 under B, that it says depicts, describes, represents in a patently offensive way, and then it goes on to say, and I guess I'm saying in depicts and describes. So if it is describing it, we would have to have words and text. So would you then say that this bill does address things that are in writing?
Representative Nelson.
Madam Chair, Representative McCann, I think it does. And it's a bit of a decision when you come into a bill of how specific you write it. Too general and it doesn't address issues. Too specific and things skirt around it.
Yeah.
I think as I listened to the testimony today, it's a little bit, I think, like I couldn't tell you which Supreme Court justice said it, but I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
I think everybody that's testified here has excellent examples of things that, whether you call it pornography, offensive, I mean, it shouldn't be around in libraries. Hopefully, this is a reasonable way to address that. So,
thank you.
Representative Ehart.
Madam Chair, just to address Representative Clow's, the fact that there's a waiver, and we need to make sure this isn't lost on any of us. The fact that there's a waiver that the parents have to sign to get that library card exonerates librarians of any and all responsibility. And I can't state this enough. The other thing that I find interesting is that, you know, we've had a lot of testimony from people in here, including librarians. We don't have a problem. We don't even have pornography in the library. And yet we're supporting a bill that is supposedly addressing pornography, but this is a way to do it. And this legislation, potential legislation, is so watered down compared to what we already have. I would much prefer to keep what we have than go with something that's watered down and that basically exonerates anyone from potential. What we currently have, I'd rather keep, and I would hope my colleagues would at least consider that. But yes, that waiver would exonerate the librarians.
Would be a potential motion, right? Not right, not yet. All right, Representative Hawkins.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Nelson. I have two questions, if that'll be okay.
Sure.
We've clarified that in the definition, it speaks to the written word. And on page 1 in section 2, when it talks about adopting policy, nowhere in this does it tell them that they cannot have these books in there. Is that correct?
Representative Nelson.
It's not in front of me, but I believe that's a local decision of your library board. So that's the intention of the legislation, is not to dictate to them.
Representative, sorry, go ahead.
The way it's addressed, it's clear here that I'm not sure this group could ever adopt anything that made everybody happy. And it's not intended as a cop-out. If you're upset with your library, you can either tell them your kids don't want to be exposed to some of these materials. And I believe if you read the text of the law, it also states that you can say, I don't want my kids in this library. To me, that brings it back to where it belongs. Parents.
Your follow-up.
Yeah, follow-up, but also to make the clarification that I don't need a written script to tell me that I wouldn't send my children somewhere. But the other part is, do you find it interesting that you just spoke about Representative Clow's progress on getting internet filtered of these materials, and yet we're making it permissible to have physical copies of the same things that are filtered out of the internet?
Representative Nelson.
Chairman Yamamoto, Representative Hawkins, I in no way, shape, or form would be painted that I support any of the things that we've been addressing today being exposed to any kids. I think our argument today is the best process to address that. And I agree, this isn't a perfect bill, but what I like the best about it and why I'm happy to bring it in front of you is it sets up process, it sets up a formal, they have to adopt in the process how to address their complaints, and it addresses parents' rights. Once again, if you're not happy with your local school's service in the library, as a parent, it enables parents' rights to say, no, I don't want my kids exposed to that. And it speaks to lots of things. Every parent parents a little bit differently, and I have issues with the government telling you how to raise your kids. So that's, like I said at the beginning, I think this makes everybody that's testified here, it doesn't agree with anybody's testimony. Hopefully it finds central ground, and local communities can find that. So unless you have more questions on.
Representative Garner, do you have a question or?
Madam Chair, for a motion.
Motion is in order.
I move that we send House Bill 227 to the House floor with a due pass recommendation.
It has been moved that we send House Bill 227 to the floor with a due pass recommendation. Are there any comments for that? Hearing none, we'll do Representative Ehart.
Madam Chair, I would make a substitute motion. I would move that we reject House Bill 227. And again, I would like to speak to my motion.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Just for clarification, I think you want to say you want to hold it in committee?
I was looking at that.
Yeah.
Can we do that? Yeah.
Yes,
Are you all
Madam.
right with changing it to that hold in committee?
Madam Chair, I am. When you had asked me earlier, I was wondering which language to use. Madam
All
Chair.
right. That's why
I
we
would move.
have
Thank
him.
you.
Yes.
I would move that we would hold this legislation in committee until a date certain, March 25th.
Okay.
And may I speak to that motion?
You may.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, this legislation, as I had stated before, is one that the Library Association certainly had input on and helped to write. And I get it. I get why they'd want to do that. It is one that really favors them. What we currently have is right here. The 139 moved it one way and this one moves it the other way, and I just don't like the fact that it provides protections to librarians and the frustrations that many of our citizens in Idaho have, they will continue to have. And so thank you, Madam Chair, for indulging me in the parliamentarian in helping. I've never made that motion before.
Well, there we go. First time for everything. Representative Birch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With all due respect to Representative Ehart, I will not be supporting that motion. I think we've heard everything that we're going to hear on this issue, and I just don't see where any more time is going to really change anything. I think it's time for us to make a decision, and one way or another, in regard to this issue.
Representative Sauter.
Madam Chair, my feeling is if we I don't want to make a third motion, but I'll just comment. I sense the frustration in the room. I'm frustrated as well. But all parties are here. I'm new to this, but I don't agree that we need to sit and wait and push this to March 25th or dates further. I'm an optimist. My feeling is, why don't we table this today and give them 10 days. We're all going to be here. And see if we can't push these two parties together to meld something together and get a better policy out of it. So I'm not going to support the alternative motion that we wait until March 25th. I just think that we can push the parties together and do something and take advantage. I hate to say it. I'm all for speaking for the children, but I think we should take advantage of the frustration we have and put something down and get something done better. So I'm speaking against the second motion, and because I think we can do better than that, and I think we can do it within a few minutes. Thank you.
Representative Price.
Can I make a motion that we adjourn?
Yes, that's a non-debatable motion, and parliamentarian, that means that yes, explain what that will mean.
If we adjourn, that kills the motions, and we have to bring this back at a different date if you so choose.
So the motion, it's non-debatable to adjourn. So all in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same.
No.
I think I'm not in doubt. I just think people were loud, but I'm going to say that it passed, and so we are adjourned.
you.